2020 gave us a college football season for the books. It's definitely one that will go down in history. There were a lot of surprises, including a lot of surprising teams that came out of nowhere and had incredible seasons. Today, we're going to be taking a look back at the 10 most surprising teams from the 2020 college football season. Before we get to today's video, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications if you're new to the channel. I post a lot of college football content like this, so if you're a college football fan, this is definitely the place for you. Before I get to my 10 teams, this list isn't in any order of who is the most surprising or anything like that. These are just the 10 teams that I happen to write down in order when making the list. We'll start out with Indiana, who isn't known for being a football school whatsoever. They finished the season 6-2, good for a winning percentage of 750. For reference as to how high of a number that is for them, only 4 teams in program history have finished with a higher winning percentage. It's the highest number they've had since 1967, so a winning season like this was very rare for Indiana. They had a very solid 8-5 campaign in 2019, but I don't think anybody was expecting the Hoosiers to be competing for the Big Ten championship. They picked up a crazy last-second victory to begin the season in overtime against Penn State, and then went on to win their first 4 games of the season. They almost took down Ohio State on the road, but fell to them by 7. But they showed they were a tough opponent. Michael Penix Jr. was a great quarterback for Indiana before his season ended with an injury. He threw for 1,600 yards and had 16 total touchdowns. Ty Freifogel, Wap Taylor, and Stevie Scott all had great campaigns as well. Tom Allen proved that he's one of the best coaches in the country, and he has Indiana going in the right direction. I mean, look at this. How would you not want to play for this man?
And you fought! And you fought! And you fought! Special things ahead of you. You understand me?
Yes, sir.
Special things ahead of you. That's the truth. I love this football team, man. You got no idea.
Up next is America's new favorite team, the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers. This was a team that truly came out of nowhere. First of all, if you'd like a full history of the school and how they got to this point, I posted a video on them a few months ago, so you should definitely go check that out if you want. The Chants were picked to finish near the bottom of the Sun Belt in 2020. Well, they finished at the top. They're co-Sun Belt champions and finished their incredible season 11-1. They won their first 11 games of the season before losing a heartbreaking game to Liberty by 3 points in the Cure Bowl. The Chants climbed as high as number 9 in the AP poll. That's pretty impressive considering 2020 was the first time they were ever even ranked in the AP poll to begin with. The game that everyone's going to remember from Coastal in 2020 was their game against BYU, in which they scheduled just a few days prior. It was an exciting game as a last-second stop as time expired gave them the win over a BYU team for the biggest win in program history. Led on offense by Grayson McCall and CJ Marable, the Chants were nearly impossible on offense to stop. In addition, their defense was fantastic as well, as they were led by CJ Brewer and Taryn Jackson. Jamie Chadwell has done an incredible job with the Chants since taking over, and this looks to be a team that we can see moving forward in the top 25. In their 3rd year in the FBS, the Liberty Flames were scorching hot all season long. They finished the season 10-1, with their only loss being by 1 point to NC State after their potential game-winning field goal was blocked. After starting the season 6-0, Liberty went on the road and took down Virginia Tech thanks to a game-winning field goal. They had a thing for entertaining games as they capped off their season with a thrilling 3-point victory over Coastal Carolina. The Flames got as high as number 21 in the AP poll, and just like the Chants from earlier, this was the first time Liberty had ever been ranked in the AP poll. They had both the top 25 offense and the top 25 defense on the season as well, and only a handful of teams can say that. Quarterback Malik Willis was arguably one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the nation as he totaled over 3,000 yards with 34 total touchdowns. I'm not sure how much longer Hugh Freeze will remain at Liberty, but what he's been able to do with this team in such a short amount of time at the FBS level is nothing short of incredible. This next team probably had the most underrated season on this list. Did you guys know that Ball State finished the season 7-1 and won the MAC? Even in a condensed season, the Cardinals' 7 wins were their most since 2013. Since 2014, they hadn't won more than 5 games in a single year. They finished the season ranked number 23 in the AP poll, the second highest they've ever been in the rankings. Ironically, Ball State actually lost their first game of the season as they fell by 7 to Miami, Ohio. Then, they rattled off 7 consecutive victories, including 2 very impressive ones to close out the year. They took down the heavy favorite number 23 ranked Buffalo Bulls in the MAC championship, beating them by 10 points. Then, as double-digit underdogs against number 19 San Jose State in the Arizona Bowl, they beat the Spartans by 21 points. It took 5 seasons to build this program, but Mike New looks like he might have a team that can compete in the MAC moving forward. This next team doesn't really come as much of a surprise, as Cincinnati has been one of the best group of 5 teams in college football over the last few years. They won 11 games in 2018 and in 2019, but finished with a winning percentage of .900, the second highest in program history, after the 2009 season, in which their winning percentage was .923. Cincinnati began the season ranked number 13 in the country, but didn't exit the top 10 after the first month. Although they play in the American Conference, Cincinnati handled nearly everyone they played with ease. In the second week of the season, they took down then number 22 Army by 14, holding them to only 10 points. Then, 2 weeks later, the Bearcats went on the road and took down then number 16 SMU, beating them by 30 and holding that high-powered offense to only 13 points. They then kept another high-powered offense in check, taking down Memphis and Houston by a combined 67 points and holding each team to only 10. To close out the season, the Bearcats beat number 20 Tulsa in the American title game to win the conference. Then, they have the chance to face one of the best teams in the country in the Peach Bowl, the Georgia Bulldogs. Although they were a 7-point underdog, Cincinnati hung with them the entire game. And, to be honest, they should have beaten them had it not been for some awful coaching by the Bearcats on the final drive and an insane field goal from Georgia to win. Still, Cincinnati showed that they're capable of hanging with the big boys and that this is a team that can make a run again next year. With head coach Luke Fickell and quarterback Desmond Ridder returning, don't be surprised when Cincinnati is fighting for a potential playoff spot next season. Before we get to the other 5 surprising teams from 2020, if you could please take a second and give this video a thumbs up, I would greatly appreciate it. It helps share the video with more college football fans, and it only takes a second to do. After a really solid run in 2017 and in 2018, Northwestern was awful in 2019. They finished the season 3-9 and were one of the worst teams in the Big Ten. Well, they flipped a switch in 2020 and nearly won the Big Ten. They finished the year 7-2 and climbed as high as number 10 in the AP poll. They began the season with 5 straight victories, including a win against, at the time, number 10 Wisconsin. Had it not been for a shocking loss to Michigan State, the Wildcats could have been competing for a playoff spot potentially. They faced Ohio State in the Big Ten title game and actually led them at the half. But they went scoreless in the second half and ended up losing, but they held Ohio State to only 22 points and made Justin Fields look like a JUCO quarterback. Northwestern then took on Auburn in the Citrus Bowl and beat them with ease, winning by 16. Northwestern's offense didn't blow anyone away, but it was their defense that truly made them one of the best teams in the country. They held opponents to under 16 points a game, the 5th best in the nation. They allowed only 195 passing yards per game and 146 rushing yards per game. If Northwestern can improve their offense just a little from this past year, it's hard to see why they won't be competing in the Big Ten title game again next year. For some reason, no team received more hate in 2020 than BYU. Everyone gave them crap for their weak schedule, but people seem to forget that their original schedule got completely gutted. Before COVID, here were some of the teams that BYU was supposed to face last season: Utah, Michigan State, Minnesota, Arizona State, Missouri, Houston, Boise State, Stanford. Now, I'm not saying that they would have gone undefeated, but that is a damn good schedule. The fact that they were able to schedule as many teams as they did was incredible. BYU finished the season 11-1, the most wins in a season for them since 2009. Over the last 3 seasons, the Cougars had only won a combined 18 games. Even though they were playing easier opponents, the Cougars did what they were supposed to do: dominate them. They blew out nearly every team, averaging 45 points a game, the 3rd best in the nation. In addition, they were holding opponents to only 15 points a game, the 4th best in the nation. They were the only team in the FBS last year to be in the top 5 for both. The biggest game of the year for BYU was when they traveled on the road on short notice to play Coastal Carolina. Although they played a pretty sloppy game, the Cougars nearly won on the final play. Had they pulled off the victory, they very well could have finished the season undefeated. The man that was largely responsible for BYU's success was quarterback Zach Wilson. He had an incredible year and was, in my opinion, the 3rd best quarterback in all of college football. He finished the season with 3,700 passing yards and 33 passing touchdowns with only 3 interceptions. He also had 10 rushing touchdowns as well. He'll be entering the NFL draft, which is a huge blow for BYU, and they'll also be losing some key pieces as well. Sadly, I don't think BYU is going to have this kind of season again next year, but still, this year was a huge win for them. I mean, come on, I don't think anyone was expecting the Cougars to potentially be competing for a playoff spot in 2020. This was a team I also did a video on, and then of course they lost their final game of the season after I posted it. If you'd like a more in-depth video on the rise of San Jose State football, then you can go find that video on my channel. In my opinion, of all the teams that were on this list, what the Spartans have done is the most impressive to me. They won 7 games in a condensed season, and that's the most wins they've had since 2012. Their winning percentage of .875 was the best in program history. Just 2 years ago, the Spartans were the worst team in all of the FBS. They finished the 2018 season 1-11, and that was coming off a 2017 season in which they finished 2-11. In 2020, they finished 7-1 and won the Mountain West for the first time. It was also their first conference championship since the early 1990s, before I was ever born. Ever since Brent Brennan took over, he's turned this team from a laughingstock to a conference champion. Through the first 6 games of the season, San Jose State's closest game was a 10-point victory over Nevada, who was another very surprising team that easily could have been on this list. Then, in the Mountain West title game, they took down the heavy favorite Boise State Broncos by 14 points. Then, for whatever reason, they just didn't have it in their bowl game against Ball State, another team on this list, as they fell to them by 21 points. Although it wasn't the finish to the season that they would have liked, they still shocked every college football fan this year by having the best season in program history. Up next, we have the Louisiana Ragin' Cajuns, and this is another one of those teams who isn't really a total shock as they went 11-3 in 2019. But it was still surprising to see them this good in 2020. They finished the season 10-1, the only time in program history they've won at least 90% of their games, and just the second time they've won at least 80%. They started the season on a high note as they upset Iowa State on the road, beating them by 17. They climbed up to number 19 in the AP poll, the first time they had ever been ranked. After starting the season 3-0, Louisiana lost by a field goal to Coastal Carolina, but then they rattled off 6 straight victories, clinching a spot in the Sun Belt title game. But due to COVID, the game was called off, and they were named co-Sun Belt champions. They capped off their season with a win over UTSA in the First Responders Bowl. Billy Napier has done a fantastic job since taking over, as Louisiana has one of the best overall records in college football over the last 2 years, winning 21 games. He's received offers to coach much bigger programs, but he's turned them down as he wants to keep building on what he's accomplished so far at Louisiana. Our last team on this list is Buffalo. Like a lot of other teams on this list, they cracked the AP Top 25 for the first time in program history. They finished the season 6-1, and their winning percentage was the greatest in program history. They started the season 5-0 and were averaging over 52 points a game, the most in the country. In the MAC championship game, though, they were held in check by Ball State, a team that seems to be mentioned numerous times on this list. They were held to a season-low 28 points in the loss. They only scored 17 points in their bowl game against Marshall, but it was enough as they won by 7 to cap off an incredible year. Now, success isn't anything new for Buffalo. They went 10-4 in 2018 and 8-5 in 2019. This team has been rising the last few years, and 2020 was when they finally put it all together. Buffalo's going to be losing their star running back Jared Patterson to the draft, but they'll still be returning a lot of talent next season. I mentioned 2 teams from the MAC in this video, Ball State and Buffalo. Now, I know it's early, but if I were to put money on which 2 teams are going to be playing in the MAC title game next season, those 2 teams would be my guess. Well, that wraps up today's video. Which team in your opinion was the most surprising in 2020? Or was there a team who I didn't include on this list? Drop a comment down below and let me know. If you haven't done so yet, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I have a lot of college football content planned for the offseason, so make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications so you never miss another video moving forward. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video.